Hari Om. So I shall continue the powers of yoga, Saptama Vibhaga, Saptama Anga, seventh Anga of the Patanjali's Yoga Shastra, which is again Dhyana. I am continuing. It is the third part. I have completed two parts on meditation, on Dhyana, and Dhyana is the seventh Vibhaga. So, in this third, let us complete about the Western thoughts and sciences and modern scholars' views on meditation. Western means even our own Indian scientists, astrophysicists, scientists, physicists, and other people. So, essentially, what comes here is see, the meditation, as I told you in my previous lecture, creates the pathway to moksha, that is liberation. Without meditation, the moksha, as prescribed by the Upanishads and Vedas, the details of which I am going to go in the next session, is very difficult to obtain. Though you can do it in the karma way, karma yoga, and also in the bhakti yoga, it is possible. It is definitely possible. But meditation has been prescribed by Patanjali also, so that it creates the pathway. See, once you start meditating from the dharana, in dharana, I told you is concentration, because before that, those other parts, up to that dharana is the sixth one, and up to that five, what we have seen earlier, right from yama, niyama, and all asana, and pratyahara, and all those things, pranayama, they prepare your body so that you, the asana, you have a comfortable seating, and then you are making yourself ready as a farmer readies his field, manuring or whatever it is, watering and plowing, and loosens the soil. So in dharana you concentrate, but dhyana, when the dhyana in dharana you think of say om, or in between the two eyebrows, that is the third eye part, or the breathing below your nose, those things. There are a lot of points of concentration. Whereas once you start meditation, in the meditation process, you don't remember the object of your concentration. You only will be aware of your existence. That's all. That's the difference between dhyana, dharana, and dhyana. Dhyana is the seventh, dharana is the sixth. Then comes the samadhi. All these three are called samyamas. It's very important. So you only are aware as soon as you close your eyes and think of your om. I told you, lot of thoughts will come. Thoughts are nothing but tiredness of your mind. All these thoughts come, go. Just like Mani Bhaumik beautifully explains in his book, you can see when you go to the seashore, you can see a lot of seagulls or seabirds somewhere sitting together in a place, and once you go near them, they all fly away. Similarly, you will be meditating nicely and you will be thinking of Om, and all of a sudden thoughts will come. Boom, 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 your concentration is lost. If that happens, there is, for a normal family person or one who is involved in Vyavahara, Loka Vyavahara, Laukikas, it happens. So, and by training, you go and think of that Om or Shreem or between here, and then what happens? Finally, in meditation, in deep meditation, the thoughts of that Om or this point or here vanishes. There is no such object of meditation at all. There is no object of meditation. You are only meditating, but you are aware, unlike samadhi, which we are going to just see. Therefore, what happens, as I told you, it creates a pathway. Meditation is the pathway to merge yourself with the divine cosmic energy, the Paramatma. You're merging yourself with your Atma, so that there is no Punarapi Maranam and Punarapi Jananam, as stated very clearly in Chandogya Upanishad. 6 months you are there, 6 months you are there, then you go enter the moon, they enter the sun, they enter the other planets, the Pitraloka, the Devaloka, the master comes and takes you along to the divine energy, the Brahmaloka, where it is nothing but energy and light, and there is no avarthanam, there is no Punarapi Maranam and Punarapi Jananam, so you merge with the divine light in total bliss. In an impartial total bliss, there is no partiality. So that is the motive. So that is a pathway, that is a frequency you can really have to achieve the divine. There are a lot of frequencies, lot of ways of worshipping God as stipulated in our Hinduism. We have the Bhakti Yoga. You can say Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Om Namah Shivaya. When we say the divine, the supernatural, the God's names, we ourselves will have the ability our mind will have the ability to merge with the divine. It gets, or the bhakti, the jnana yoga, or the karma yoga, you do your work. I will tell you the karma yoga verse also. Sannyasa yoga, karma yoga. So Bhagavan says, karma yoga, tayoho, it is a varishtaha eva. That I will come to those verses later on. Therefore, this gives you the frequency to the divinity. That's what I am repeating. Einstein's physics, Einstein's laws, which says everything is energy in this world, in this universe. Whatever you are seeing this universe, with your eyes, with you feel, with your pancha indriyas, with your five senses, hearing, sense, touching, feeling, smelling and all, this universe with your body, maybe the universe is different when you are in some other body. Other than this five senses body, if the body we do not know, we can't even imagine what could be the other body. Though within this body we can imagine a gas state or a liquid state or a solid state. Like a stone, I'll be inside the tree, I'll be inside an animal next birth. You can imagine, but outside the body, what is the form, what is the process of thinking, what is the process of intelligence, we do not know. Everything is based on these five intelligence only. The five senses only. All our intelligence is based on the pancha indriyas and the mind. Therefore, you are in that frequency. Everything is energy and there is nothing more to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want and you cannot help getting that reality. There is no other way. This is physics, not philosophy. Unquote. This is what Einstein says. Everything is energy. So match the frequency of the reality you want. So the reality is if you want to have a moksha, the liberation, you have to have the medicine of meditation. Hinduism gives you various medicines. If you have diabetics, one medicine. If a person has tuberculosis, one medicine. If a person has a common flu, one medicine. An ordinary headache, one medicine. A TB, one medicine. A cancer, one medicine. There are a lot of medicines, There are a lot of doctors. There are a lot of teachers. Therefore, one of the ways of achieving divinity or yourself becoming divine is meditation. So that there is no punarapi maranam and punarapi jananam. No birth and death cycle. You don't enter that cycle because Einstein very clearly says matter cannot be created or destroyed. There is nothing called only this birth and I am judged after that. No. There is nothing called going to the eternity after we pass over the body. What is the eternity is what we do not know. Then if we don't get the eternity, then we have to be punished, sent to hell. God will not do all those things. He is a very, very loving person. He does not like to see you being punished also. He does not like to have a free will so that he is not able to correct you. He will feel sorrowful. God will feel sorrowful. So everything is based on your own actions. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Let us come to law of physics. God is so kind. Therefore, you are responsible for your own actions. Therefore, for that, if you sit and meditate, controlling your anger, controlling your lust, the desires, that's what Bhagavan says. I am going to come to those verses later on. Therefore, you go into those frequencies when you meditate. When you say Om or when you meditate between here or you meditate on the Ishtadevata, the Om will disappear or the Ishtadevata will disappear, the thoughts will disappear, you will be aware of the existence and finally you will be entering the next stage, the 8th Ashtama Vibhagaha, which is Samadhi. So, this meditation gives you the pathway, it guides you the way, it is the light for you to take you, one of the lights, to take you to the divinity. And meditation is always advisable because I told you, even in Western neurological studies, it is very helpful because it cools down your mind, it strengthens your neurons. It enables free flow of blood between one neuron to the other, from one axon through the synapses to the facing dendrites of the other neuron. Free flow of blood supply. So that all parts of your brain, all the cortex, all the lobes, the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, all these lobes you have, the temporal lobes, all these, the frontal cortex area, the cerebellum, the cerebrum, the spine, everything, you will have a free flow of blood without getting pus cells or without getting blocked. Like the arteries of your heart getting blocked, the doctor will say, so I will do a bypass. So, without getting blocked, how do you the exercise is meditation. It is a very, very important tool, both from the standpoint or from the viewpoint of medical, neurological science, and also from the viewpoint of divinity. That is what our ancient rishis in the Vedic civilization has so illustriously brought out. The concept of meditation, which you do not find in any other faith, in any other religion. I am very boldly telling. This Vedic civilization is the superior most civilization humanity could ever had. And that is from India. We cannot afford to miss out on that civilization. You cannot. Maybe whatever your faith is, you cannot. Because this is the only prima facie, or not even prima facie, the in-depth, profound concept given by a rishis to the mankind of the meaning between who am I, of the meaning of this universe, what is life. Everything you can derive very beautifully in a scientific manner, not in some scriptural manner, in a scientific manner which will match the present day scientists' thoughts. I can challenge, we can argue. I will, because most of the people, including Hindus, have not read deeply the Vedas. About, I would say most, because I have spoken to a lot of people. But on a sampling basis, I am telling, as a sample, they may not know the Rig Vedic verses or the Vedas from the Taittiriya Upanishads, from the Krishna Shukla Krishna Yajur, from the Krishna Yajur Veda, Shukla Yajur Veda, or from the Sama Vedas, what are these verses, or the Vedangas, or from the Upanishads. There are about 10 major Upanishads. 108 Upanishads are there. All others are lost. Where it is there, we do not know. Some papyrus is lying somewhere. Some scripts are lying somewhere. It's a Herculean task. Even only 1% of whatever is available, we have translated into the Western languages and to the modern day languages with great pains. Translations are going on, but it will take time. Maybe it will be revealed after another 50, 100 years. So much of wealth we have. Therefore, kindly meditate at least for 30 minutes a day, calmly, simply. But when you meditate, you should not be in urgency. Oh, I will now meditate and then I have to rush to my office. Oh, I will feel hungry, I am hungry. Okay, anyhow, my time is, this is my meditation time, I will meditate. See, all those things will only disrupt. You should be free. You should not have any requirement. You should be free. You should not have next work. Urgent work. After that, you will not be able to meditate properly. The tools I am telling you to enable you to meditate properly. So you should not feel hungry. On hungry stomach, Buddha says you cannot torture your body. Nothing it is not possible for human beings. And you should not have urgent work. And you should not feel for any work. Therefore, all these are there. Apart from your asana, for finding a good place and relaxed way, you should not have, after you come from your office or much earlier before you want to go to your office, after taking a cup of coffee or evening after coming back and having a bath, if you want you can take a tea, if you feel that you will get hungry for dinner, then sit down and meditate, so that at that point of time during meditation you should not feel hungry. You should not have any other work to do after meditation, important work. Okay, eating is fine and sleeping is not a work. But I have to go, I have got a meeting at 9 o'clock, I have got a dinner meeting at 9 o'clock, all this you have, it will be a problem for you unless you are a seasoned meditator. Therefore, meditation, as Patanjali says in his Yoga Shastra, it's a very important. Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. These three are called samyamas, as Shankara says. And as Shankara very clearly said, when you meditate at the utmost point, when the laser fuses, hits the hitting point, you even forget the object of meditation. You only know the orbit of a sun, not the color of a sun, not the brightness of a sun, not the rays of the sun, not the heat of the sun, temperature of nothing you will know. That's what Adi Shankara himself very beautifully says in his Bhashya. Therefore, I recommend all of you to have a peaceful meditation at least for 30 minutes a day, calmly for at least 6 months or 45 days, minimum to 6 months. You will definitely find the effect. Your memory power, your capability, your assessment, analytical ability, everything will improve. Even your talent, physical talent will improve if you concentrate on, meditate on a particular object. Say your object is a sport. You can concentrate on the cricket ball or the tennis ball or on the hockey ball. And then later on you can go and meditate, think about that, concentrate on those games. Visualization method, what we call in modern psychology terminology. All positive things only you can think. Good moral positive things. Moral code of conduct is very essential. Love, charity, helping others, not getting angry. That's what Bhagavan says. You can refer Bhagavan's verse, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verses 1, 2, and 3. 3 verses. Beautifully, Bhagavan gives out the moral code of conduct. Therefore, my dear friends, the next session I will again talk on meditation, but this time from the Vedic perspective. What are all the Vedas? How does Patanjali says in his chapter 3, 1, 2, 3 and all, what happens in Sanskrit I will tell, and then I will translate in English. Similarly in yoga, in Bhagavad Gita, where it is there, all these references I will give in the next, even in Tamil. Thirumolar beautifully talks of Dhyanam. So all these things one by one I will quote in the coming ensuing sessions. Till such time, Bhuyat Tavat Shubha Mangalam. Thank you.